So this was brought to my attention because I sometimes eye production material and all kinds of prototype stuff in the Transformer world and sometimes consider making the deep dive purchase. But this was one that was really interesting. So a presentation board for Transformers Transtech of Silverbolt hit eBay just a couple of days ago for the deal of a price of $999.99. $1,000 pretty much. And it's just pretty much two boards with line art and production art that I have seen before, essentially, for Silverbolt here. Now, the coloring that's done for this version, I have never seen before, but I have seen the art essentially for this and the line art for this in the past. This was art that was done by Draxhall Jump, which was a studio many years ago, based out of Toronto, that was heavily responsible for a lot of Beast Machines and Transtech designs, and does not get enough credit, in my opinion, for a lot of the stuff that they've done. The founder of Draxhall Jump, Ken Lashley, I mean, that guy, you won't find him on the TF Wiki, but he was instrumental behind a lot of the designs. Two guys, essentially. I just want to tangent off for a second here. Beast Machines really was like designed by Tim Bradley, who worked at Hasbro. He gets his credits are all out there. He was responsible for a lot of designs, Cheetor and stuff like that. Shogo Hisui, Mr. Masterpiece himself, MP10, MP11, and onward. He actually got some of his first gigs doing Beast Machine stuff. He did Skydive, and then he did Bruticus, that Cerberus design, which would later be used in RID, but he came much later in Beast Machine's lifespan. But most of it is really Ken Lashley, who did those early sketch designs and stuff like that, and Ken Henderson, another guy that never gets enough credit, who worked at Mainframe Entertainment and Mainframe Animation. He was kind of like, I guess we'll call him the Flair O'Deary of Beast Machines, where he kind of took Ken Lashley's sketch designs and turned them into animation models and character designs for the show. And I mean, so it's Tim Bradley, Ken Lashley, and Ken Henderson. Like, those are guys that were really instrumental behind Beast Machines. And Ken Lashley of Draxhall, his name just isn't out there. It's such a shame, but his name just is not out there at all. And so these Silverbolt designs that essentially surfaced through eBay here, I've seen these before, and the websites that essentially carried them pretty much don't exist anymore, but I have backups of these, and the coloring that is shown in these eBay auctions is vastly different than that of what I had previously, and I'll share them in the obviously the images for the segment here, and you'll be able to compare the differences. But what's fascinating about them is more that I look at them, and again, one thing that we could appreciate with this eBay auction is it gives us a nice color version of the alt mode, where originally it was just black and white line art. For years, people have always said, like, oh, you know, like the engineering of the Transtech Starscream was then later used in the Megamorphs Iron Man, which was because Draxhall Jump and Ken Lashley and them, they would go on to then work with Toy Biz and their Megamorph Marvel line, which was kind of like a Transformers Marvel line before there was Transformer crossover with Marvel. And people used to always say, like, oh, you know, the Iron Man, it was the designs that were used originally for Starscream. And I don't see it at all. I still don't see it. And they say the same thing with the Amorticon with Hulk. Like, I just don't see it. Maybe I'm blind, but it's just me. But what I do see is when you look at that Iron Man from the Megamorphs line, I see a lot of the Silverbolt kind of designs, at least in the alt mode, not so much in the robot mode. Robot mode's kind of its own thing. But I mean, when you look at a lot of those old designs from Drexhall and the old the pitches and the presentations, there's a lot of crazy stuff that was going on with Transtech back in the day. A lot of the pitches that were given to Hasbro just for price points and stuff, they were just using stand-ins. They were using like I remember for Optimus Prime, they used the Rick Dome Char's counterattack. Not Char's counterattack, I think Char custom of the Rick Dome, and they used that as Optimus Prime as just like a stand-in from Gundam. And they did the same thing for Megatron. They used the Nuiziel, which was I think Anavel Gato's from 0083 used his Gundam, and they kind of just colored it up and everything. Not his Gundam, but his mecha from Gundam for Megatron. I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff going on. Obviously, you know, anyone who followed my Twitter, you look at some of the early sketches by Aaron Archer for Transformer designs, and they obviously get tweaked and they look kind of different from the final products ultimately in the end, whether it be Armada or Cybertron, or even that of early Beast Machine stuff and Beast Wars. But this is kind of the same thing, is that because Transtech was one of these lines that all we know of it really is the early stuff, you know, prototypes done in resin and early sketches that who knows how different they would have been when they were spat out the other side, when a character designer for an animation series would have done it. And not to mention the practicality of a toy from an engineering standpoint, price points, and, you know, budget. But I mean, it's still fascinating to see this, and it's nice to just see the Silverbolt in different colors and some, you know, obviously the little text and everything. It's hard to read in the auction, but it also, the previous slides of these that have existed in the past, it's the same stuff essentially. And I do have it in my archive, so if anyone ever wants to see it in HD, just hit me up on Twitter or something. I'll gladly send it to you, because a lot of those websites are dead today. They just don't exist anymore, and outside of, I think, using maybe Internet Archive, you could probably revive them. I haven't tried that personally, but a lot of them was like behindthetoys.com. A lot of those, they kind of went under quite a few years ago. But it's interesting to just kind of look at this, because Transtech has always been a fascinating animal to me. It always has been, because it really was this like fork in the road in a lot of ways for Transformers in fiction, because after Beast Machines, if they would have went into Transtech, it would have continued that American designed, in general, not complete, but American designed, American written, American animated kind of direction that Transformers would have continued to go in, instead of porting over car robots and the robots in disguise and then going the Armada, Energon, and Cybertron route, which would be the Japanese route that we'd be going for, at least at that point, for the next 5 to 6 years before obviously the movie came out and then animated and everything went back to the American soil. But it's very interesting, that Transtech route and the rumors that came with it, and is it going to be a port of Web Divers, which was another, like, you know, Takara-based robot series that transformed at the time. Like, there was so many wacky stuff, and I talked briefly with Aaron Archer about it in person at a TFCon, I think 2 or 3 years ago, and we never really went deep into it, but it was always like something that was always been very fascinating to me. And Transtech is, to this day, I felt that, you know, Fun Publication tried to do a little story with Transtech, and I just feel it didn't do what people wanted. You know, it gave us the Axiom Nexus and all of that, and implicated those Transtech characters into it. But I think what people really wanted was more of a what if, like what if Transtech was a sequel to Beast Machines, how it would have been done. And I think that that's probably a story, in my opinion, that should still be on the table to tell one day. You know, even if done in comic book form or something, it would be really fun to see how that story would have played out as a sequel series with the cast of characters. I mean, we knew like stuff like a Depth Charge coming back, or Soundwave, or Shockwave, like so many classic characters, and of course Starscream. You know, all these classic G1 characters. Could have been for trademark reasons. That's probably the primary reason why I think they were probably being brought back. I mean, Lord knows that, you know, after we had car robots and robots in disguise, Armada would use a lot of these trademarks for themselves, or on the Japanese side of things, Shockwave being Tidal Wave, Silverbolt from Blur, and so on and so forth. And again, a lot of those designs would find their way also into, let's say, Armada, like Megatron being an H-Tank, you know, in Transtech kind of being similar in a lot of ways, not completely, but similar in a lot of ways to the Aaron Archer design of Armada Megatron later on. But yeah, this is all. I could talk about this forever, just because I've always been fascinated with just the whole story of Transtech and celebrating the individuals that their names just are not out there. Ken Lashley, again, from Draxhall Jump, you know, he was their founder. He just does not get enough credit for the work that he did with Beast Machines and later on Transtech, and he doesn't even have an article on TF Wiki. I always find that fascinating. And Ken Henderson, who was the character designer at Mainframe for one of the many character designers, but the one that was primarily responsible during the Beast Machines era for porting over those Draxhall designs and those Tim Bradley designs, and turned them into animation models. So it's, those are two guys that, hey, if any of the wiki guys are listening, hey, give those guys some credit, make an article for them or something, because a lot of people, they really rely on the wiki for their information, and unfortunately there's so much stuff that's missing on there still. I mean, it's in my head, and it's on my hard drive, but it's kind of useless there unless it's out there, so, and I can only post so much on my Twitter every day to let people know, hey, this exists. So definitely check this stuff out. I'm going to post the images of the Silverbolt and everything, and as much as I could fit, obviously, in this little video. But if you want to see more, it's kind of hard to find on the internet, but hit me up and I'll definitely post stuff. If not, I'll post it in my Discord or even in the community section of the YouTube channel, just to kind of get it out there a little bit and people could snatch stuff. But I mean, it's really tough stuff to find, because Transtech really is this weird thing in Transformers history.